The Eurozone economy came close to stalling in September after declines in global trade, and the threat of a no-deal Brexit triggered the fastest fall in manufacturing output in nearly 7 years. Germany was the main driver of the slump after a survey of private sector activity found that the growing threat to international trade from the tit-for-tat US-China trade war had left it in the worst position since 2009. Often referred to as the powerhouse of the 19-member currency bloc's economy, Germany has suffered a year-long slowdown that has accelerated in recent months. Well, for more on this, I'm joined by Colin Stevens, the publisher of the Brussels-based European multimedia news platform EU Reporter. Collins, we're very lucky to have you in the studio in London.
Pleasure.
Thank you. I know you'll be rushing off to Brussels after this. Let me just start with this. Low inflation, low interest rates and low growth. Do you think this is the new norm for Europe?
I think it probably is. I think Germany will come through it. I think you'll see the European Central Bank add stimulus. I think it's on the verge. I don't think Germany will tip into recession, although it could if the second quarter figures get any worse. I think it's a delicate balancing act for Germany.
It's a delicate balancing act for Germany, and some would say it's because the Eurozone and Europe depend on Germany so much. Do you think the strength of the German economy is the strength of the Eurozone?
I think it is, and in fact I think that is Europe's problem at the moment. Germany Europe's used to Germany being so strong and taking the lead that when Germany falters, it does give problems, yeah.
A lot of people have been really kind of pessimistic about where, the Eurozone is going, where the euro is going, of course, the fallout from Brexit, which when you're in London, you can be very London, Britain-centric, as Brits generally are. How has Brexit, manifested itself on the continent, and are people worried?
I think most people on the continent are thoroughly fed up of talk about Brexit. I think politicians and economists are worried because if there's a no-deal Brexit, the economy will be hurt. Germany does sell an awful lot of cars to Britain, and the UK is a big customer of Germany. And any tariffs or anything that alters the ease of trade is going to be certainly a short to medium-term problem.
It's quite interesting you say that because, of course, most EU nations, the leaders, have been pretty tough on Britain and Boris Johnson. Quite, some would say that, they're fair to do that because, of course, if they're too soft with him, then there are other states that may try to seek their own exit, aren't they? But then, of course, you've got that luring threat over their shoulder of Donald Trump. Donald Trump has promised a big package for Britain if we leave the EU. And then Donald Trump is also threatening to put tariffs on Europe. Are they taking that threat seriously?
I'm sure they're taking it seriously. I mean, I think what you've seen so far has been negotiating positions. Of course, you have to talk tough when you're negotiating. I mean, that's the one thing Boris Johnson is doing that previous prime ministers didn't. But Europe has led the way. It's been very united in its stance towards the UK. I think as the probably final deadline looms, you may find a softening of attitudes in Europe or an accommodation, as opposed to Donald Trump, related to Donald Trump and China. I think everybody's very wary of Donald Trump and the USA. I don't think they're going to get wonderful deals that are being implied. I think Europe is seriously worried about the fallout of a no-deal Brexit. I think it's seriously worried about the USA at the moment, and obviously the position with China, because trade with China and the Chinese economy is falling back, and it's an important market.
It's huge, isn't it? You talk about Europe being united. Some would say that that's Far from the case. But because, you know, in Europe, the attention has really been fixated on France and Germany and, of course, Britain, you've forgotten about the rural parts of Europe. And this is an issue that we've seen across many continents, where you've got the urban developed areas, you've got the rural impoverished areas, and there's no bridge. Are you seeing that on the continent? Is there a feel of that, a sentiment of, you know, anger?
Yes, when I say Europe's united, I mean the 27 EU countries negotiating with the UK. They've got a united stance there. I mean, yes, Europe has its own problems. It has small countries. It has separatist movements. You have the Catalans. It's all problems which are going to come. I mean, Europe is trying to keep the lid on it. It's trying to manage. It's a huge project. It has the euro, the eurozone. It has all these disparate families of peoples. It's doing a very good job at the moment, and I think, you know, the alternative is a lot worse.
Are there any positives that can come from Britain's ugly, messy divorce? Anybody who's married knows just how messy a divorce could potentially be. But are there any positives for Europe if Britain does indeed leave?
I think the only positive is that no other country will ever want to leave. I think they'll see what pain and what economic downside is. I think that's actually part of the EU strategy, to make it so difficult for the UK to leave that nobody else ever will.
And I think that could potentially be the case if indeed Britain do leave. Well, Colin Stephens, thank you so much.
I don't think the UK will leave in the end.
Oh gosh, that's just a personal opinion. That's a last-minute prediction from you. I think thousands of others will agree. Thank you for joining us.